Hi everyone, I'm Terry. Hope you're having a great new week. Happy Monday. If you're here, thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Every view, every interaction means so much to me. At this point, I'm trying to grow my channel despite having many videos here. My channel is still in its infancy stages here on YouTube and on social media. I haven't been active here on YouTube for quite a long time. I've been active on TikTok and other sites. Um, I just there are things that I like to do on TikTok, so I just do them. It's not for uh, that site itself. It's just I decide that I want to do something and I enjoy it and I do it. But most importantly, everything that I do is for animals because of my utmost over anything in life love for animals. First and foremost, I am an animal activist. Um, I love animals more than anyone, yes, and more than anything ever in the world. At the same time, I do videos sometimes on other subjects to show that as an animal activist, I'm also, a person, I'm an individual, and the things that I go through, and things that I have been through in my life, good and bad, down and up. Um, and I do these things to show who I am so that people can know me and hopefully feel a kinship with me if they've been through the same things or if they have any experience and they'll have some understanding. Um, Foremost, though, I do it for animals because I want to bring more attention to myself so that I can bring the most attention to the plight of and the benefit to benefit animals. Um, Today, I'm doing a vlog on my experiences in my life, what has brought me to this point. Um, and, you know, when this morning I decided to do this video, um, I thought a lot about it, and then I thought, well, you know what? I'll just go ahead and I'll do it. Um, because if I continue to put, you know, mass amounts of time and thought into it, I wouldn't do it at all. I always want to make everything perfect, and um, realistically, it's not always feasible. So um, here I am, and however it comes out, it comes out. I just know that it needed to be done. I've spoken about my past before in other vlogs, in the past few brief years. And this is really important to me because society has become predominantly narcissistic, sociopath, toxic people. Uh, I believe, and I'm not a professional mental health provider at all, but I believe that these are called borderline personalities. But in my layman's terms, I don't even think they're borderline. I think they're all the way. And I've spoken about narcissism, sociopath, sociopathy, if that's the correct term, but I'm using it here. And I grew up an empath because both of my parents were and are narcissistic sociopaths. My father was a controlling narcissist. My mother is an underhanded, manipulative narcissist. My family members are all toxic, just like my parents. And this is not pessimism. This is reality. This is the truth of how I grew up. And I was the empath in my family. Um, I was extra sensitive, not, being, oh, you're so sensitive. No, sensitive in that even at the youngest age, I knew the truth and I could see it, and they knew that. So they made me the scapegoat. I was the black sheep of the family, even though I was the good member of the family. And I don't say this to say that I've been a perfect angel and everybody else is bad and I'm the only good one. Um, that's not my intention. It's not even my belief, because I'm always willing to admit when I've been wrong. And I've done a lot of wrong things in my life as a result of my dysfunctional childhood and upbringing. I've stolen. Um, I've been in county jails and state prisons in California. So, yes, I've been institutionalized. I've been arrested and institutionalized many, many, many times, too many for me. I realize that there are people who have been institutionalized like me many more times than me, but I don't compare myself in that way. I just believe that once would have been too many for me, let alone the many times that I have been. And two times I was arrested and institutionalized. By that I mean jail and prison for crimes that I did not even remotely commit. So I've been on both sides of the coin. Today I'm making this vlog to talk about my mother, um, mainly, which is what has brought me. My parents and my family have had scapegoated me, and of course those are factors in what has made me who I am today. It's always our experiences. Overall, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. I used to say years ago that I believe in God. I don't. In 2019, at the terminal illness and death of my most beloved loved one, my beautiful, dearest, beloved pet, Puba, I came to see the truth, that there is no God, and that's my belief. And it was the first and last time. I never wavered after that. I'm spiritual. I have such a clear narrative and vision of things today, like I never have before, and it resulted from the night of his ultimate illness, when his illness had gotten to the point where there was no denying how ill he was. Um, so that is the most upsetting and saddest thing of my life. I haven't gotten over it. In fact, it's become more painful for me. And animals are my life. I say that truly and most truly and sincerely. I honestly don't like humans. I feel like as humans, we are the most evil, or the evil form of life. Animals don't have any bad thoughts in their head. Animals bite out of fear or being rabid, and they never have any bad intentions. Humans have bad intentions. And with that, I will segue to my biological mother. And I firmly believe today that people should be exposed for who and what they are. And her name is Violet Rosbania. And she, even before I was born, and she always spoke about this, and this is how I know, she was always massively entitled. Of course, she didn't say I feel like I'm massively unjustifiably entitled. She always spoke about how she was born in and lived in Iran. And when she met my father, she was very, very, very young. As I think that back then, women were married off almost as children. But she got married because she wanted to. You know, um, and long story short, my father, Essie Arasheben, um, brought her to America. He bought her a beautiful home, um, an automobile, gave her, money, fixed her finances, gave her a life, and she was always complaining about how this was the worst thing. It wasn't good enough for her. To this day, if somebody did that for me, I would be so appreciative and so grateful. Like, somebody would do that for me. That's immense. That's great. And that's in this day and age, when there's so much more available at our fingertips. Then it wasn't like that, of course. And she was always bitching, always complaining how, quote unquote, I was a woman all alone. I was victimized. I was this, I was that. Oh, how horrible it was. And even as a child, when she would always say this and take her entitlement and frustrations and rage out on me by brutally physically beating me, emotionally and psychologically abusing me in so many horrible ways. And I thought about it today, when I was remembering. There's things that you associate with something, and I've always and still do love chocolate. And one of my favorite things as a child and even now is extremely moist, wet chocolate cake layered with frosting and icing, because I always like moist pastries. And I remember, in my childhood, she would often bake cakes, and every time she baked a cake and she would um, slice a piece and give it to me, she'd do it by plunking it down on the kitchen table and hitting me and saying, "Oh, because," in a sarcastic manner, "Oh, because you deserve it." Well, I love chocolate. I love sweets. But when I think about a Duncan Hines cake, that's how I associate it, and um, so, I don't eat Duncan Hines anymore. But I still eat chocolate. I love chocolate, and it makes me happy. But there are those things that carve a space in your mind. Um, Call it living in your head rent free, whatever you want to call it. But that's how it is. And she was always so um, arrogant and entitled and abusive. And I'm not quite sure how I grew up an empath in the face of parents, both parents being what they were, um, toxic human beings. I grew up devoid of boundaries. I had no boundaries, and I used to be angry at myself for that. Um, Now I realize it wasn't my fault, but that's how I grew up. They programmed me intentionally, to make me think wrongfully, incorrectly, that I was never good enough, um, that I could never do anything as well as others, even though I did really well in school. Um, but they were always cussing at me, cursing. My mother actually took enjoyment in cursing at me all the time, even when I was a child. And what can a child, a 4-year old, even a 3-year old, and I have a very good memory, do even at the age of 2 or 3 or 4, that would ever deserve a physical beating, not a spanking, but brutal physical beatings with shoes and other weapons. And even worse than that, actually, to be cursed. Like, oh, I hope you get run over, you fucking bitch. And she would curse me out in Persian, she would curse me out in English. And these were curses. Oh, I hope you get sick. I hope you get sick and you die. Get a disease and die. And things like that. And it's not simply cultural, it was born of toxic persons that would do that. And I used to think to myself, how does anybody do that to their flesh and blood? How could my father bring himself to do things to spite me when I never deserved that? I used to have affection for my parents. And I also figured out that while I used to have affection for them and be very attached to them, and it was an unnatural attachment to where I had a phobia of being away from them. And I figured that it's a form of Stockholm syndrome. But I was always a very insecure child, an insecure adolescent and adult, massively insecure. And it has gotten to the point till to this day I have severe anxiety disorder, although I've overcome so much and I've learned so much and I've grown so positively, and I never thought I would. And I'm so happy and grateful for all of the inroads that I've made, despite it actually being a curse. It's like a gift that keeps on giving to have just one narcissistic parent. But to have both narcissistic parent, well, that was the worst thing. And I not only grew up attached and with zero boundaries, but I also grew up being too nice, believing that, wrongfully, incorrectly, that I should bend over backwards for people, that I should do anything and everything to make people happy, because if I don't, well, what if they go talk about me behind my back? What if they don't like me? What if they don't approve of me? What if they don't love me? What if they don't stay with me? What am I going to do? And I always used to be like that. And it took me the longest time to detach, not only detach, but be so cut off from all of those things finally, that I truly this day don't give a fuck. But I used to give more than a fuck. Those things were, I wanted more than anything to be approved of and to be loved. Familial relationships, romantic relationships with boyfriends, with men, and I would even tell them that. It got to a point where I thought, well, maybe I should share how I feel. Maybe I should share my past, and I would. And that would only result in me being even more taken advantage of. I was molested by my mother's boyfriend when I was about 11, 12 years old. I was a virgin. I didn't even know what a kiss was. And when I was molested, manipulated, molested, and out and out raped by him, and he was 35 years old, my mother knew about it the entire time. In fact, it was her intention for that to happen. We briefly lived in Portland, Oregon with my grandparents. And when one of the times when my mother was separated from my father, and my father was in California, and she met a man there. His name was Richard, and at the time he was about 35 years old, unbeknownst to me. And she was with him for whatever benefit that she got from him. And she decided, well, instead of sacrificing herself to get those benefits, she would sacrifice me. She knew what he was all about, because she always treated him as some discard, some guy that wasn't good enough. When he would come around to the house, to my grandparents' house, she would always tell him, wait outside in your car, I'll bring you something to drink. No, don't come inside. So with that, how is it that you thought that it was appropriate for your little 11 to 12-year-old virgin daughter to have to be at his house every day after school and on weekends? How did you think that was okay? She knew what was going on. And um and this is what I mean by sensitive. I could always intuit things, and I never used to listen to my intuition. Now I do, and I go with it 100%. But even I mean, even then, I knew what he was about before the molestation took place. And I told him one day, I told her one day, I said that I don't want to go to his house the first time that she was going to send me there. Because one day she told me, um, tomorrow you're going to start going to his house after school every day. He's going to pick you up and you will go. And I said, I don't want to go. And she mocked me. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah, little girl, why not? Why? Oh, do you think he's going to do something to you? And I said, yes, I do. And I'm scared. And she made me go anyways. She knew what was going on. And the inevitable happened. And in that process, he groomed me as his molestation victim. And he knew what he was doing. Um, he could see what she was about the same way that she knew what he was about. And he even used to tell me, oh, you know, your mother doesn't love you. She's best buddies with your little brother. So I'll be best buddies with you. And in that way, he came to manipulate me. And despite him raping me, despite him being a pedophile, I grew attached to him, and I thought, again wrongfully, that I loved him. And the way he kept me shut up and quiet is that he used to lie to me and say, and don't tell anybody about what happened because they'll put you in jail. And I believed him when it was he was the criminal and he had done all the wrong. So I never told anybody, but my parents knew. Not just my mother, but my grandparents knew what was happening. My two uncles, my mother's brothers, who also lived with us in the same house as my grandparents and my mother and my younger brother. My two uncles, Sina and Michelle, you know, his American name is Michael. They knew everything at the time. And they always enabled my mother because my mother was the loudmouth and the controller of the family, you know, on my mother's side. And so they always enabled her rather than, you know, go against her in any way. But not only that, my father, although in California, knew exactly what was happening to me and lifted not a finger to protect me. How do I know this? Because this rape destroyed me to the point where it was so bad that at first I would deny it to myself that, oh, it was a relationship, not a rape. And it finally came to a head for me and hit me so bad when I was about 15 years old and, you know, living in California by then. And I was constantly in turmoil and in pain because of this. And I would tell my father, and I remember one night when I was at his apartment in Los Angeles and crying to him about it. And he told me, oh, well, I always knew this is what was happening. And yeah, I realized what an asshole he was. But I never said anything because I was a people pleaser. At that point, I would have never told my dad, oh, you're a disgusting, repulsive asshole. Like you knew about this, about your innocent biological child, and you never even thought to make an inquiry or to step in or anything to even attempt to protect or help me. And overall, everybody in my family kept mum about it because it was for their benefit. And they always lied to me and said, well, we kept quiet about it for your benefit because in Persian society it would have made you look bad. No, they lied. What they meant is that in Persian society or in any society, it would have made them look bad for allowing it to happen. So this guy, I won't call him a man, this guy, Richard, got away with it. It was years later that I discovered that he had done the same thing before me, and he did the same thing after me because I was so manipulated by him that when I was living in California, initially he told me, when you leave with your parents, call me collect every day. And I would sneak and call him collect. And during one of those collect calls, one of those conversations, I asked him, so what are you doing these days? And he told me, oh, I met this lady and she has a little girl. Oh, and in fact, she's your age. And she's always asking about you. And I'm like, why would that little girl who doesn't know me be asking about me? He said, well, because, I have a blown up picture of you, a poster of you in my bedroom. And she always asks, oh, who is that pretty girl? And I tell her, that's Terry, my love. It was all so bizarre. But here's the thing. How would she have seen that picture of me all the time, not just once? I mean, a house tour, you'd see it once because you'd glance and see it in the bedroom, but she's seeing it all the time because she was in the bedroom. At any rate, he was a pedophile. And I broke contact with him. It got to one day that I discovered in myself that I don't love this guy. I don't care about him. I'm not going to call him anymore. And even at the time that I didn't admit to myself that he was a pedophile, years later I would admit it to myself, but at that point I didn't. But I did cut contact with him. And I continued to grow up insecure, always scared, always timid, although with a chip on my shoulder all the time. And then tortured for having been raped when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And I'd always make the mistake of confiding to people. I used to confide to what I thought were my girlfriends in junior high. And anytime they'd get mad at me, they would throw it in my face. Oh, you had sex with a 35-year-old man. Which brings me to this. By the time this was torturing me and that it had come to the surface and I had faced the fact that I had been raped and this was not a relationship in any way, this was a rape, and that it had been all wrong, I tried to talk to my mother about it and confront her about it, which is when she blew up at me. She said, what? You weren't raped. You stole my boyfriend. And I actually thought about that. Did I steal her boyfriend? I mean, this is how brainwashed some children can be when they're so vulnerable. And to this day, she not just refuses, but arrogantly would refuse to ever admit that she did something wrong, that she had any part of it. And it was about 2 years ago when I finally cut her off for the final and last time. And I had always had fights with her, and I was always, so to speak, breaking up with her. But about 2 years ago, I threw her out of my house, and that was it for good. I threw her out, and she knew that I was serious. And that's what precipitated this final cutting the bitch out of my life, is because I had realized so much in my life and I had grown so positively that toxicity had no place in my life. And I will say this, it doesn't matter who somebody is to you. If you know that you're a good person, if you know that your intentions are good, you're not perfect, but you know that you're a good person. It doesn't matter what relation, what connection somebody has to you, a mother, a father, a spouse, a partner, a child. No human has any right to mistreat or abuse you in any manner, because if they are, then they are not to you who they might biologically or otherwise be. A child is not your child, maybe by blood, that's it. But a child is not your child if that child is abusing you. If that child is at an age where he or she knows better, all bets are off. And I used to be the type of person that if I had affection for somebody, I would go to any length to please them and to say that, no, it's okay, it'll get better. But those were lies that I told to myself, because I was programmed, I grew up to be a pushover. And I always hated that about myself. It was one of the bases that helped to ruin me, to help to ruin my life. And if you've been there, if you have personal experience with it, if you know, you know. Um, what One of the things that tops it off and makes it worse is that neither of my parents and nobody in my family was ever an addict, was ever dependent upon alcohol or drugs or any substance. They were the way they were and are just because. Because some children grow up as children of addicts, and that's why their parents have personality disorders, are toxic, call it what you want. Because I refuse to call it borderline personality, even though I might refer to it now and then as that, because strictly because in it's on the books, let's say, labeled as borderline, but they're not borderline, they're all the way evil. And um, although they may be personality disorders, they are not mental disorders. Let's not enable toxic people by saying they can't help it, they're sick. It's a mental disorder, it's an addiction, it's beyond them, it's something that they can't help. No, 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 no. That's to excuse it, that's to give them an out, and that's to okay it. And these types of people are not excused from being what they are and from doing what they are, because so many people have been ruined by them. And unfortunately, it's an epidemic of epic proportions these days. I'm not a statistics expert, let's just say, okay? But I'm right, because I've researched it, so that's why I know. And yes, I've been posting some things online about my history, and I will continue to do so. And with that, I will say this. I've been the target of a stalker for several years now. Her name is Tori Roos. She's written so many slanderous things about me online, and I've come to terms with the fact that one day I will legally, um, pursue it, however legally that's necessary. But at this point, I know me and I know the truth about me, and I've finally come to a place where I've done so much work, and I'm not perfect. I have not finished. It's still a journey for me, but I'm still working on myself. Um, with that, I do have some upcoming, very exciting and good changes in my life that I've been wanting to happen for a long time, and which is another reason why I haven't been so active on YouTube. TikTok and Instagram, they're shorter punches of time, so you can, put something up quickly. But I'm really excited, and so I'm going down a different transformation as well as my life transformation, and having come so far so positively, and still being on the road, still being on the journey. Um, and I want to say this: if you've been there and done that, as I have, and been through a life similar to mine when it comes to toxic people, don't ever give up. And don't accept the narrative that you shouldn't be prideful and you shouldn't have pride in yourself. Those are the wrong narratives, because I firmly believe that when you make positive changes and you've reached good milestones in your life, you should have so much pride in yourself. You should be so proud of yourself and do more to be even more proud of yourself. And if you're not there, then do something that makes you proud of yourself. Yes, it's good, and yes, you have that right. And um, keep your chins up, all of you. And if you like this video, please, I would love for you to give a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I really do want to grow my social media presence, to bring more and more, as the most attention I can, to animals. And it always starts with growing your presence. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you very soon. Bye bye.